Hey all, welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile, and today I have my first deck profile of the Link format, and I thought, hey, what better deck than the deck I'm personally using right now in this format when I compete locally. And yes, it's an Ancient Gear deck. The Ancient Gears have always held a special little place in my heart, and I'm so glad that they're somewhat competitive right now. And I would actually say they're quite competitive right now. They're an awesome alternative to what is top tier, because they can still stand up to all of them as long as they don't break. And in the Link format, they don't suffer very much at all. And they have easy access to Link monsters too. But I'll discuss all that as I go through the deck. So why don't we jump right into it and see that I run 3 Ancient Gear Reactor Dragons. I've always bounced between 1 and 2 of these initially, but now I definitely believe 3 is the way to go. It is awesome. It doesn't have a summoning condition, and it has the awesome ability that if this card attacks, your opponent's spell, trap, and monster effects cannot be activated till the end of the damage step. At the end of the damage step, if this card attacks, you can destroy one spell and trap card on the field. So not only can you blow up your opponent's back row, but you can blow up one of your cards and get another special summon off. So Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon is a must-have at 3 in this new format, and I would recommend it highly. Definitely run 3 of them. You want to get your monster count up, and it's an awesome choice. Rarely have I ever tribute summoned into it, but if you do, you can possibly get, by tributing a gadget monster, a second attack in each battle phase. And if you tribute an Ancient Gear monster, you can inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent as well. So definitely one of the best cards in the main deck for sure. But then I run just a single OG Ancient Gear Golem because I love it. I love it and I have to. And it's just another monster in the monster card total that helps me give fuel to the fusion monsters, and it's a big beat stick. It's 3000, inflicts piercing battle damage, and your opponent cannot activate spell and trap cards until after the damage step. But then with Code of the Duelist, something else came out. More Ancient Gear support. That's right, Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound, which I definitely believe should be called Mechanized Melee, but that's a fight for another day. I'll have to live with the name for now. But this just takes Ancient Gear Golem and gives it some extra power. So, if this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. Also, twice per turn, when this attacking card destroys a monster by battle, you can discard one machine type monster. This card can attack again in a row. That's awesome. This is an OTK deck. I don't know if I mentioned that enough times in the previous deck profiles, or even in this title, but this is an OTK deck, and it hurts your opponent. And for this to have multiple attacks that inflict piercing damage, that's awesome. Also, if this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add one polymerization from your deck and one other Ancient Gear monster from your graveyard back to your hand. So that's some awesome searching, and that's some awesome synergy with this deck. I definitely recommend running 2 to 3 of these for sure. Sadly so, its summoning condition says it cannot be special summoned, but there is cards in this deck that say ignoring the summoning condition special summon an Ancient Gear monster, so that's no problem. Next we move on to the Ancient Gear Wyvern. Now this is such an awesome card, such a great combo piece. It has 1700 attack, which is nothing spectacular, but if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand, except Ancient Gear Wyvern. Also, you cannot set cards for the rest of this turn. Now that's a little bit of a drawback, but sometimes I use this during my opponent's turn after they destroy my Howitzer, or if they blow up a card that I control, I can use Wyvern to search out anything I need for my next turn. Also, it does have the same Ancient Gear effect. If this card attacks, your opponent monsters cannot activate their effects until the end of the damage step. And of course, run 3 of these. You should run 3 copies of most Ancient Gear cards in this deck for sure, because it's a low monster count, and these are really just the good cards of the deck, of the whole archetype for that matter. And then next up we have Ancient Gear Gadget. Such an awesome card, really brings together so many different worlds here. So if this card is normal or special summoned, you can declare one card type, monster, spell, or trap. This turn, if a monster you control attacks, your opponent's spell, trap, or monster effects, whichever was declared, cannot be activated at the end of the damage step. Also, once per turn, you can declare one gadget monster's name. Until the end phase, this card's name becomes that name. So that doesn't have any synergy with this specific build, but if you were running a Gadgetron monster, you could potentially get off a specific effect. But just having Gadget in this card's name makes it everything you need, and having Ancient Gear in its name means if you tribute summon Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon using just Ancient Gear Gadget, because you have Gear Town on the field, Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon actually gains both of its effects, so that's really awesome. But one of the most notable aspects of this card is it has 500 attack and 2000 defense. And that 500 attack, well, we're going to talk about that pretty soon. But just remember, 500 attack. Then next up we have Ancient Gear Box. Now this is a really awesome card for two reasons. Once again, has 500 attack, 2000 defense. And if this card is added from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except by drawing it, you can add one Earth Machine monster with 500 attack or defense from your deck to your hand, except Ancient Gear Box. So this is pretty awesome. You can grab your gadget right to your hand. You can only use this effect of Ancient Gear Box once per turn though, so you can't get off multiple searches and grab multiple gadgets after that. And then finally for the Ancient Gear monster lineup, we have Ancient Gear Hunting Hound, a walking polymerization. So if this card is normal summoned, inflicts 600 points of damage to your opponent. Now that's pretty awesome right there. Just a little bit extra burn. We always like burn. Nothing too substantial though, but its real power lies in its ability to fusion summon using it. But of course the fusion summon has to be for an Ancient Gear monster. It's also 1000 attack, 1000 defense, and a level 3, so its synergy is not really there except for the fusion aspect of that. And then just because this is a modern deck profile, we also run 1 Max C. Because Max C is just too powerful, and it being at 1, well, you just have to run it at that point. And hey, if it were a machine type, Ancient Gear Box would be able to search it, but sadly it's not, it's an insect. Next up, we got 3 Overload Fusions. So Overload Fusion is a powerful card in this deck, because so often you'll have enough Ancient Gears in your graveyard to bring out your strong, powerful boss monster, Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. Basically the best card of this entire deck. It's your OTK machine. So of course we'd run 3 copies of this. Then we also run 2 copies of just a normal polymerization. That's because we have a great search for it, and sometimes you want to bring out your Howitzer. Howitzer is an Earth type, which means we can't use Overload Fusion for it. Overload Fusion banishes from your side of the field or your graveyard fusion materials that are listed on a Dark Machine type fusion monster. So obviously it only has 1 target. Then moving on, we have 3 Ancient Gear Catapults. So while you control no monsters, target 1 face-up card you control, destroy it. If you do, special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. Also, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon 1 Ancient Gear token. And you can only use 1 Ancient Gear Catapult effect per turn, and only once that turn. So that's something to keep in mind. You can't just blow up a card in your field, special summon a monster, and then blow up another card in your field, and special summon a token. That had to be done in different turns. But now we get to talk about that 500 attack thing I was discussing earlier. So machine duplication. Target 1 machine type monster you control, 500 or less attack. Special summon up to 2 monsters from your deck with the same name as that monster. So you can pick your box that's face up on your field, use machine duplication, and special summon 2 more copies of that and go into a Decode Talker like that, go into a Mrs. Radiant and still have 1 card left, or just go straight into a rank 4 and use up your extra deck space like that. That's no problem. That gives you so much easy access into your extra deck. It's insane, and that's why I even keep a 3rd one on the side deck. But I definitely run at least 2 at all times, and I recommend you do the same. Also, we tossed in a limiter removal in here. Now this is an awesome card because it doubles the attack of all machine type monsters. But during the end phase, destroy those monsters. So this is like a Megamorph for a turn. But it doesn't affect Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. It doesn't affect your Howitzer. So you can use that even while they're on the field and get some of your monsters to really high, strong potential attack points, maybe 6,000, like your Reactor Dragon, your Golems. And then you lose those at the end phase, provided you don't already just win the game after that, and you'll still keep your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant there as well. And of course we can see why that's limited down to 1. And then next up, I can run 1 singular Twin Twister in the main deck and 1 in the side deck. So Twin Twister is great because it obviously helps with the back row destruction. Sometimes you want to get rid of your own skill drain, the far right corner down there. But sometimes you also want to blow up your own cards, and hey, it's also good for blowing up your opponent's cards too. Also, getting an extra Ancient Gear monster in your graveyard can sometimes make or break the game, because you might only have an Overload Fusion in your hand. Next up, we have 3 Ancient Gear Fortresses. Now this card is so awesome because you can play it, and then during the turn they were normal summoned or special summoned. Your opponent cannot target Ancient Gear monsters you control with card effects, and they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of Ancient Gear cards and effects. Also, if this card is destroyed in the spell and trap card zone, you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your hand or graveyard. Also though, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Ancient Gear monsters. So this is a really good card. It allows you more special summons. It also allows a ton of protection for the turn monsters are summoned. Also, your opponent just cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your cards. So that's insane. I love this card. Definitely run it at 3. Then we have a tricky little tech card here, Future Fusion. Now this is a great way to dump 4 Ancient Gear monsters into the graveyard super easily. As long as your opponent doesn't take it out, you can easily just get Foolish Burial 4 of your cards to the graveyard really quickly on the next standby phase. And hey, if you really need to, you can still use Ancient Gear Catapult on your Future Fusion as a way of special summoning a monster from your deck if you absolutely have to. But basically what this card does is during your next standby phase after this card's activation, reveal 1 fusion monster in your extra deck, send the fusion materials for that fusion monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then during your second standby phase after this card's activation, fusion summon 1 fusion monster with the same name as the fusion monster you revealed for this card's first effect from your extra deck. When this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. When that monster is destroyed, destroy this card. Now this is pretty cool because this doesn't equip to your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, which means it is good. It is good to go. And it's a great way of dumping 4 cards to the graveyard. Like I said before, this is an awesome card. I definitely recommend running 1 of these. Of course, that's all you can run because it's obviously pretty powerful, don't you agree? And then finally for the spell cards, we have 3 Gear Towns. Now this is a field spell from way back when, but both players can tribute summon Ancient Gear monsters with 1 less tribute than required. So you can bring out your Ancient Gear Golems, your Raptor Dragons for only 1 tribute. But even better, when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So whatever you need, special summon it. Of course, we do have 4 targets that are unable to be special summoned using Gear Town's effect. Those are the 4 golems you see above. But other than that, no problemo. Every other Ancient Gear card is great to be summoned out. And then to finish off the main deck, we run 1 Skill Drain. Obviously, because it's limited to 1, because it's just so awesome. And this is a card that really stops a whole bunch of other local decks that I'm fighting. Twilight Sworns just get crippled by this, and it just really hurts other decks to see this card. So, activate by paying 1,000 life points. The effects of all face-up monsters on the field are negated while those monsters are face-up on the field, but their effects can still be activated. Their effects are negated once that happens. So, Skill Drain, if you activate it after you have your Howitzer out or you have your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant out, those 2 cards are unaffected by Skill Drain. But if you play Skill Drain before those 2 come out, they also have their effects negated. That's kind of cool. So if you bring out your Howitzer and you start burning your opponent for 1,000, and then you play Skill Drain, you can still keep burning your opponent for 1,000 because Howitzer is unaffected by the effects of other cards. So I've discussed a lot about the fusion monsters. Why don't we physically jump into that side of the deck now? So in the extra deck we have 15 cards, of course, and 7 of them are fusions, and fusions are the OTK potential of this deck. So we run 3 Chaos Ancient Gear Giants. This takes a total of 4 Ancient Gear monsters and must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card is unaffected by spell and trap card effects. Also, your opponent's monsters cannot activate their effects during the battle phase. This card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. Now this is just a walking OTK machine and I love it so much. And I just run 3 of these because there's been games where I've gotten to all 3, but you could honestly bump this down to 2. I just like 3 because that's what I like. Sue me. And then I also run 1 Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. Now this card, it's a pretty expensive card to get your hand on, where everything else in this deck is fairly cheap, I would say. This card stands at a fairly high price tag, and I would only run it if you really want to build this deck and you really love it. I don't even personally have this card in my actual real life deck, and I'm okay with that. But I do really like it. Now, it takes an Ancient Gear Golem and 2 other Ancient Gear monsters. This card cannot be special summoned except by fusion summon. So basically it inflicts piercing battle damage. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate their spell trap card's effect until the end of the damage step. If this card is destroyed, you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear Golem from your graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions. So this is a really old-timey card, but it has 4400 attack. It's kind of cool. If it's an option, I run it just in this virtual deck because, hey, why not? You can. It's another option you can go into if you need to. And then the card you're going to be seeing most often, Ancient Gear Howitzer. It only takes 2 Ancient Gear monsters. It's unaffected by other card effects. And then during your main phase, you can just choose to inflict 1000 points of damage to your opponent. It's awesome. Now, you can only use the effect of Ancient Gear Howitzer once per turn, but if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. That's golden, that's awesome, this is a great combo piece, and hey, extra burn damage is always appreciated if you want to just take out your opponent next turn, eh? So of course I run 3 of those, and it is level 8 if you absolutely have to go into a rank 8, that's a possibility, and it's an earth if you want to go into your Mrs. Radiant. But speaking of rank 8s, we got number 38, Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy, Mr. Mouthful, that just basically protects your Xyz monsters, protects them from targeting attacks and everything like that, and you can negate an opponent's spell card once per turn. And then also I found with this deck, what you want to do is you want to take out your opponent's life points, and sometimes you have a hard time doing that. But Lancelot here, number 23, Lancelot Dark Knight of the Underworld, this card can attack your opponent directly while it has Xyz material. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target 1 face-up monster opponent controls, destroy it. Also, once per turn, during either player's turn when a spell or trap card or other monster effect is activated, you can detach 1 Xyz from this card and negate the activation. This card is awesome. It's awesome in this deck, and it's an awesome card in general too. Moving on to the rank 4s, we have Karingan, Anti-Luminescent Knight. So this is 2 level 4 monsters. During either player's turn, when another card or effect is activated that targets exactly 1 card on the field and no other cards, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card and then target another card on the field that would be an appropriate target for that effect. Now that target targets the new target. Target. But it's 2450, awesome high attack, and it's really great in the current matchups, and I chose to run this over a Utopia engine just because I was kind of low on space. Utopia the Lightning's very expensive, and I really didn't find myself going into it much. I found myself going into these one-offs, and I found myself going into Geargian X and Iron Wolf a whole lot more. So speaking of Geargian and Iron Wolf, let's talk about them really quick. So Geargian X just takes 2 level 4 machine type monsters, and then once per turn you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, add 1 level 4 lower machine type monster from deck to your hand. That's the most key part of this, and that's why I like to move it. I have 1 of these, and I go into this more often because I need to go into my fusion plays more often than I wanted to go into an Xyz play. Then, I also recommend Heavy Armor Train Iron Wolf. So this also takes 2 level 4 machine type monsters. And, once per turn you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, then target 1 machine type monster you control. This turn, it can attack your opponent directly. Also, other monsters cannot attack. If this card in your possession is destroyed by opponent's card, by battle, or card effect, and sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 machine type level 4 monster from your deck to your hand. So Iron Wolf is just basically Geargiant with a little bit of different timing, but way better effects. So Heavy Armor Train Iron Wolf can allow it itself to attack your opponent directly for 2200, or can allow a different monster you have, maybe your Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon, your Golem, to attack directly, which is sometimes game winning. Especially with limited removal, that could be possibly 6000 damage just right there. Also, if this card's destroyed, you get a search. I think that's fairly awesome right there. And just because sometimes I really need it, I put in 1 Castel the Skyblaster Musketeer. So basically you can detach 1 Xyz from this card, and target 1 face-up monster on the field, change it to face-down defense position. You can detach 2 Xyz from this card, then target 1 other face-up card on the field, and shuffle it into the deck. So So that gives you two really awesome options. So obviously you can't put Link monsters into face down. Sometimes you need to get a card of the field without destroying it, and that's why I have Castel here. And Castel is a great card for that. Also, shuffling a card into the deck is super key. It's great. But even just setting a card to face down defense position can be key to winning the duel too, especially with some piercing damage that the Ancient Gears do. And then for our Link monsters we have a Decode Talker. Probably the most generic, most powerful Link monster we have at the release of Code of the Duelist, most generic, with the effects that it gains 500 attack for each monster it points to, even your opponent's, because it has 3 possible pointings. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets cards you control, quick effect, you contribute 1 monster this card points to, negate the activation. If you do, destroy that card. This card is awesome, and you have such an easy way of going into it. It's awesome, awesome, awesome. Say you make this card first turn, use some polymerizations, and use some overload fusion. Oh man, are you ever set? That's a board that your opponent's going to have so much trouble getting over if you don't already just win that turn. And then lastly, we have 1 Mrs. Radiant in the main deck and 1 in the side deck. So all Earth monsters on the field gain 500 attack and defense. All Wind monsters on the field lose 400 attack and defense. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target 1 Earth monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. You can only use the effect of Mrs. Radiant once per turn. So this takes 2 Earth monsters. That's fine. All the cards in your deck are Earth. And it's super easy to bring out 2 of them. So this gives you 2 down arrows. And Earth was the first deck to really get Link support. And that's awesome. So this deck, you could say, got Link support before most other decks. So that rounds off our extra deck. Let's talk about the side deck. I have 1 more Ancient Gear Golem in here, and that's just for numbers, because I'm still playing with how many Ancient Gear cards I kind of want to have in the deck. So I have just 1 more in here, but you could put in a tech card like an Ash Blossom or a Ghost Ogre. I just have an Ancient Gear Golem in here. That's just me personally. And then for a really powerful rank 8, one that also just got reprinted, is number 62, Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon. And it's just a monster of a card, but basically the most important thing that it kind of does is it inflicts damage to your opponent by upping its attack just super high. So it's 4,000, and if this card attacks or is attacked during damage calculation in either player's turn, you can detach 1 Exceed from this card. This card gains attack equal to the combined ranks of all face-up Exceed monsters on the field times 200 during damage calculation only, and that includes this one. And this other effect is more just a Galaxy Eye support, but this is a really good card for just mass destruction. That's why I definitely have it in the side deck, because sometimes you need to be able to bring this out game 2. And like I mentioned before, another Mrs. Radiant, just for some extra Link plays, game 2 if you need them. Another Polymerization, because maybe you just need a 3rd one, who knows. A Power Bond, because really that is so situational, but if you can do it, oh, that's a lot of damage. I also run a 3rd Machine Duplication, because hey, Links are awesome, Xyz plays are awesome, so maybe you just need to see that more often. I also run 1 Raigeki, just because that's meta, and it's powerful in this deck. I don't really run it in the main deck often because you want to be able to attack a lot of monsters, because that just gives you an extra attack to do more damage because of piercing with your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. And I also have 3 Terraforming, because sometimes you want to see Gear Town more often. Like I'd sometimes toss in 1 or 2 of them, but I have 3 in here just to play with the numbers still. I'm still testing this a little bit. Then I have 1 more Twin Twister, if my opponent for some reason is back row heavy, or if I'm having a hard time destroying my own cards. And then I have the Solemn Engine in here. Solemn Engine is obviously just the most powerful trap cards alive, and that's why they're just awesome, and they really do help out the deck. If you're fighting some just really difficult cards to get over in game 2, you might want to sub in some of these. So there you guys have it. That is my Ancient Gear updated deck profile for Link format. I love it. It's what I'm playing right now until I can find a new deck. If you guys didn't know, I was playing DDD before. DDD was my jam. It was my deck, and that was one of the decks that got hit probably the hardest out of anything. So I had to look elsewhere for a new deck to play locally. And I turned to my Ancient Gear deck, and I was not disappointed. I have had great success with this, and I recommend it to anybody who wants to play it. It's super fun. Super underrated, and not a lot of people see it coming. Also, it's fairly cheap, which is a pretty big deciding factor on my deck. I thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, make sure to leave them down below, and I'll be sure to answer them as quickly as I can to the best of my ability. Hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one. As always, peace.